Today, I'm going to be a storyteller. And I'm going to tell you this story that I got dictated to me. It's a story about a king and his kingdom. The king was a ruler over all, but it was a vast and empty space. So after a time, he decided to create, through his magic, the stars, the moon, the sun, and the planets. One of in which he placed all kinds of plants and animals, and he enjoyed that creation of his, that planet, and he loved it. So he created some caretakers to take care of that planet. And the caretakers he made were like him. And he loved them as they took care of his planet. In fact, every day he would go down to where the people were and he would visit them. He would enjoy his time with them, and he would provide for all their needs. And his kingdom on this planet, which is all that was on this planet, was at peace. And the people knew the joy of the king. In fact, they would have great celebrations whenever he came to see them. And that went on for a season. But then that time came to an end when evil people arose. Where? From among the king's people. And they started telling lies about the king. They said the king was evil and that he was not taking care of the people properly, and that he had made them slaves and they had no freedom. The evil people also said that they didn't have to be that way. They could rebel against the king and make their own kingdoms and be their own kings of their kingdoms. Sadly, many of them believed these evil people and turned away from the king. This continued generation after generation. The king loved them in spite of themselves, because, of course, they were like him. He had made them like him. And he sent representatives to try to persuade the people to trust him. But few actually believed. And eventually there were thousands of kingdoms that sprung up all over the planet. But there was no peace like there had been with the one kingdom and the one king, the great king who had created everything. Joy was nowhere to be found. There was wars. There was struggles over who had the greatest kingdom and who had the greatest king. But in spite of all this, the king loved the people. Even though they were rebelling and had rebelled against him for generations. They, in fact, began to see him as their enemies, as a tyrant. Wasn't long that they began denying that he even existed or created all that was. So he decided that he would send his only son, thinking that they would believe his son. They would see him and know that he was the great king's son. But the people had been so indoctrinated by the lies that had spread for generations that they did not even believe the Son's words or even the miracles he did by his Father's magic. They called the Son a liar, a demon, a crazy person, an enemy of all that was good. Some of the people, some of the leaders of the kingdoms began to plot against the Son and persuaded the governments to kill him. Many did not even believe there was a king or a kingdom one time ruled by this great king. Then they heard rumors that the son of the king had rose from the grave and that he was living again in the kingdom. But the king was very wise, and he had put this together just in case the people did not believe his son. He used their arrogance and their hatred so that in the end they would know that the king was real and he loved them. See, the king told the son that when you die at the hands of these men, I will put all the wrongdoings of these people on you. And when you die with them, they will die. That is the wrongdoings. And when you rise, the wrongdoings will be left in the grave. And all who believe that the Son rose from the dead and believe in his words and the King, great King's rule and follow them will live in the kingdom, will be accepted back in. And not only that, but because of the king's magic, as it was in the beginning, people would live for a long time. In fact, the king was so happy with the people who came back that he said they would live forever with him in his kingdom, in his courts. Wouldn't you like to be in this kingdom where there's joy, peace, and celebration? Where the king who had magic to make you live forever, who would give you peace and joy in your own life? Well, that is not just a fable or a story. Our God, this is the story of his rule, his reign, his losing people to the enemy. Those going their own way, setting up their own kingdoms. And he is calling them back even today. It hasn't ended. The king did not send his son to condemn these people, but they would come back into his kingdom. For God so, the king so, our king so loved all the people that he sent his son so that any who would believe in him and his word would have everlasting life in his kingdom. That is the gospel in a nutshell. If you want to be part of this kingdom, with this king who loves you, who made you like himself in so many ways, and wants you to be happy, and will provide for you, then ask him to forgive you for the things you've did wrong in your life. And ask him to accept you back into his kingdom. Let him give you eternal life as you follow his rules. Yes, his rules. First of all, his greatest rule is to love him more than you love anything else in this world. The second greatest rule, and these are in the 10 Commandments in the Bible, to love one another as you love yourself. So again, if you want to be part of this kingdom, and it's real, it's not just a fable or a story, it's real. Come join us in the kingdom. Thank you for listening.